It's a pleasure to be here today, celebrating 10 years of ex-forces and the brilliant work that Ren has done. And I think, I first got involved in this in 2015, all those years ago. And you've got an incredible record. You've helped over 10,000 veterans and members of the armed forces scope out and start up and scale their businesses. £29 million worth of government startup loans, 43,000 hours of enterprise training to support. It's incredible what you've done in a sector where it can be really tough to get that longevity, right? Because the scenarios are changing all the time in terms of the money into the sector and so on. You've done an amazing job, and I know you've just changed thousands of lives in that process. So I'm delighted to be here today to support you and to to pay tribute to you. What are we doing around this stuff in the AVA? Look, it's clear as it ever was, right, that the number one factor that improves the life chances of any veteran, irrespective of the stage they are on the journey, whether they've come out and everything's been great, or they're starting right at the bottom and going through some addiction program or some substance abuse program and using things like Fortitude, which we launched yesterday. The number one factor that transforms their life is having a job. And whilst we're looking at all of the different wraparound services around mental health support and housing and veterans in the criminal justice system, where the data's just come back and has changed for the first time, all of these different areas, the number one impact that you can have is through employment. And so that's why I was determined to be here today and to support you in what you're doing. We are determined to change both sides of this debate, right? Whether it's about veterans who are actually approaching the workforce and employment, or actually employers. And one of the biggest shifts we're undergoing at the moment is trying to get employers to understand, to get away from this idea that certainly we had in the old days, 2005, 6, 7, when Stuart was starting down at Barclays and stuff, about being, a good thing to do for society, the kind of CSR side of employing veterans, and actually get away from that and see veterans as like the best business decision you can make, right? Because you're getting so much more bang for your buck. You're getting an individual who's had millions of pounds worth of training in the military, and all the qualities that come with that. You're getting that in a veteran, and that's the key thing for me now. And this has been shaped by many conversations over the years around, in bigger companies, I'll be honest, like this area in London and so on, some of the veterans programs are pretty good and tight and so on, and we'll talk about access in a minute, but very, very good. But I go to Plymouth or I go to Exeter and I go and speak at the trade bodies there, and they say, look, I'd love to employ a veteran, I'd love to, right, but I just can't take the risk. And so we all kind of have a job to espouse for these people, to highlight what a great asset they are to any company, and to slightly push back on the misnomer around a lot of veterans, that what they can do for your company. But look, I think things are changing in this space. You have the 12-month national insurance relief holiday that's been brought in by the government. You've got the Great Place to Work scheme going on in the civil service. But I don't want to kind of just reel off the achievements. I want to sort of articulate to you briefly where I think and I hope this is all going. And that's one of the things I've learned in my time in this job is that there's so many people doing lots of wonderful things in this sector. And that remains the case. It was the case before, and it remains the case now. But the challenges, the kind of thematic aspects of the challenges remain the same, around accessibility, around equity of access, right? So I was at Deloitte last week in a fantastic event, and I take my hat off to them. But unless those pathways can be accessed by someone who leaves, for example, in Plymouth, as a corporal, lance corporal, he's 5, 6, 7 years out. He doesn't have mates who are officers. He doesn't have mates left from the military. And the litmus test has to be, how does that individual, he or she, how do they use their military training that's been the bigger part of their life and apply that into the workplace and get into not just any job, right, but a job that literally fulfills their life chances and their opportunities in life that they are absolutely as entitled to as everybody else, but they may not have the kind of confidence and the polish after 20 years in the Corps, whatever it may be, to actually get out into the workplace and sell themselves. the big challenges, like I said, then are around equity of access, but also underemployment. And nothing frustrates me more than when I go out, and I meet a veteran, and I think back and I think, oh, I remember this guy or this girl, and they're really clever. Like when we were dealing with digital comms and stuff, obviously I had no idea what I was doing, but they were extremely talented, right? And technically they know what they're doing. They've got so much to offer. Right, maybe they're not that good at presenting it, but they've got so much to offer. And I stand, and something wrong with being a security guard, right? But he's a security guard in Tesco, and I just think, the knock-on effect, secondary and tertiary effects from that on his sort of self-esteem and mental health and all the rest of it, as we deal with these experiences from Iraq and Afghanistan, is significant. So those are the two things I'd really like you to think about: is equity of access and underemployment, the equity of access bit, what I'm trying to set up. So we're building these family of programs that support, right? So you've got Op Courage, for example. You've got Op Nova for veterans in the criminal justice system. You've got Op Fortitude we launched yesterday for those who are sleeping rough and don't have a roof over their head. I'm trying to match them with kind of sector initiatives, right? Because if you want to get into something like finance, for example, because we're in London, you can go to one of these companies if you can kind of get into it and you know the right people. If they were all to come together and we were to have like Mission Finance, right, a sector-led initiative of bodies where you could approach from any aspect of your life or your career, get into it, and you're going to get a fair shot at building a career in finance. You could do it in construction as well. Some great people working in construction. All of the, you look at what Mission Motorsport are doing in that area. All across these different sectors, there's an opportunity to build a real sort of network of people who are really sort of Wilco in this space. There is no reason why any veteran should come out of the military and A, be unemployed, or B, be underemployed. And that is the kind of area that we really need to sort of push on in the next 10 years, if you like. We've come such a long way in 10 years. If you look at where veterans have come from, which is, what ended me in this unfortunate position, is in 2006, 7, 8, and I was absolutely fed up of the difference between what people said and how it felt to be a veteran in this country. We are light years away from that. We need to now think about the next aspect of that. And I'd suggest those two things are around equity of access and underemployment. I'm going to have to leave it there, Ren, but thank you so much for having me today. And congratulations again. It's genuinely really significant what you've achieved. And here's to the next 10 years.